Welcome to Relax and Chat, episode 58. Today we have a wonderful author and friend of mine, Regina O'Melveny. Her upcoming novel, The Seed Cure, will be released May 18th, 2026 by Running Wild Press. How are you today, Regina?
I'm doing very well. Thanks, Rod. Very happy to be here.
It's a joy to get to speak with you. It really is. I do want to give a shout out to Lisa Kastner, executive editor of Running Wild Press, for giving me the great honor of assigning me to be the editor for your wonderful story. That is one of the best honors and privileges and absolute fun that I've had in my entire career. And I hope we're going to talk about your story quite a bit, but I wanted to give a little shout out to Lisa for that.
Well, thank you so much, too, for what you said. Appreciate it. Yeah.
You and I put a lot of time into that story, and it really is one of the best experiences I've had. I mean, I love that story. I really do.
Well, thank you so much, Rod.
Well, I'd better get on to the questions. I'm well known to chatter too much. And of course, I'm going to ask what inspired this grand historical fantasy tale?
Well, I can say it probably had more than one origin, but I would say it began when many years ago I was in Washington, D.C. I visited the National Museum of Women in the Arts,
Mhm.
and they had this show, this exhibit of the works of Lavinia Fontana, who was a 16th century painter and one of the few who was actually, it said she was one of the first who made a career of painting at that time. She worked in Rome and Bologna. Her husband was a true helper and patron for her. The thing that absolutely amazes me is that for that time period, it was very unusual for a woman to be the main breadwinner, and he looked after the children. Apparently that was part of their marriage contract. So that's how well known and how appreciated she was as a painter. And when I was looking through the show, when I was walking through the show, I came upon this painting of a young girl. Her name was Antonieta Gonzalez, and she was a furry girl. And she had been painted by Lavinia Fontana, and I was so taken by this portrait. Not simply because of the obvious unusual, the fur of her, but the look in her eyes was um, so warm and so very deep. It was a stunning portrait, and I was very caught by it. So I stood there for a long time, and I thought, what is her story? What is this young woman's story, and how did Lavinia know her? And so that began my research into this young girl by
Oh,
the image of her, the image of her. And then there's also the other main character, Hans Hansun. I He just kind of appeared after I was reading a bit of The History of Madness by Michel Foucault, and discovered that there was these things seem entirely separate, but they do come together in the story. But Han apparently, in at that same time period along the Rhine, there were ships that would take on the mad. The city fathers would pay these ships to take on the mad, apparently for the so-called sea cure, which we don't really know quite what that was, the sea cure. So Hans became this character who appeared, and he shipped aboard one of these ships that was headed for the Fortunate Isles, which today are known as the Canary Islands. And he took care of the mad aboard the ships. So he insisted on being in the story as well. So the book is told in both of their voices alternately. That's more or less the origin of those two characters. When I write, I like to, it's almost an act of listening and paying attention, observing things that grab me. So I feel like there are stories out there that are waiting to be told, and I have to listen for them.
Mhm.
So that's how it came for me, through the painting and through the book of madness. Yeah.
I think it is so wonderful that art is inspired by art. I think that's
Yes.
beautiful. That's wonderful. And of course, I know that story cover to cover, and it is art. It really is. And it would be so cool to have that book sitting next to that painting, you know, and
Oh, yeah, absolutely,
that would be
absolutely.
awesome. Maybe you can get a print. I don't know.
Yeah, I'll have
Might,
to see. I'll
yeah.
have to see. Yeah, that's a wonderful idea. Yeah, yeah.
I have the privilege of knowing that wonderful story, but our audience does not. So, without any spoilers, would you be willing to tell us about the actual characters in the story, the main characters, and the adventure that they go on?
Yes, yes, absolutely. So it begins with Hans in Leiden, in what is now known as the Netherlands or Holland,
Mhm.
and he's not satisfied with his life. You know, he's frustrated. He's a compositor. He works for a printer
Mhm.
in Leiden, setting type, and he wants a different life. He yearns for a different life.
Mhm.
And so he happens to be walking down by the wharf and sees this ship come in. It is one of the ship of the Mad, as well as a merchant ship, because they had dual purposes.
Mhm.
And he just becomes entranced by the idea of shipping aboard that ship.
Mhm.
And so his life shifts. His life completely changes. He joins up and embarks on this journey from Leiden that will go all along the coast of Europe, and come down to what were known as the Fortunate Isles, then, where he meets this amazing young woman, Tonina, who is the furry woman. And
Mhm.
she likewise has a desire, has a longing to change her life. She feels confined by the overprotectiveness of her mother, and she is not happy in the plantation, sugar plantation that her father owns,
Mhm.
and on the island. And there's a lot of cruelty in that life, and she's yearning to leave that life. And so you can imagine that the two of them will meet and they will embark on an adventure, um, to an unknown island. And maybe that's as much as I'll say. What do you think, Rod?
Yeah, I absolutely love it. I would compare it to maybe I don't know. It's got a little bit of maybe some Robinson Crusoe, maybe some Treasure Island. It's got that vibe, that adventurous, bold, go forward into the unknown rock and roll vibe that I ate it up. I
Absolutely.
loved it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I have to say that I'm not the sort of writer who plans everything out. So I kind of let the characters lead me into the unknown. So that was an exciting thing to write as well.
Oh yeah. I'm 100% pantser and I generally follow my characters. And those two characters, I'd follow them anywhere. They're just so well defined and so likable and vulnerable and tough at the same time. They're just rock and roll characters, some of the best characters I've ever read by any author of any time period. I mean, really impressive. And you know, you could write five more books about them. I'd read them all.
Oh, oh, thank you, thank you. Oh, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm willing. I'm willing to embark.
Well, speaking of other books, this one I didn't really know about, so I wanted to ask you about it. You also wrote The Book of Madness and Cures, published in 2012. Could you tell us a
Mhm.
little bit about that one?
Sure, sure. That was a novel. That was my first novel,
Uh-huh.
and that was also something that kind of came to me not through an image, but through some reading, and images as well, because I've always been interested in the Renaissance, and I've been interested in different kinds of medicaments, herbal remedies of that time,
Uh-huh.
and the history of those remedies. And and I've always loved Venice, the city of Venice. My mother's actually Italian from Italy,
Oh,
so we traveled there fairly often. And I was just enchanted, I guess I could say, with Italy and that place and the Renaissance period. And it seemed that women had a really interesting role. Some of them did not have many choices, but some did, and it often happened that that was through their fathers.
oh,
So in the Book of Madness and Cures, the father is the doctor, and his daughter is very interested in the pursuit, the art of physic, and so she studies with her father. But then, unfortunately, her father leaves for a journey through Europe to gather information about other and knowledge about other diseases. But he vanishes. He disappears. She has some letters from him, but then the letters are become very enigmatic, and then they stop. So she decides that she has to go find out what has happened to her father and undertakes this journey through Europe with a companion and visiting various centers of medicine at that time to discover what may have happened to her father at the same time that she's collecting knowledge for herself as a doctor. So that's, I guess, yeah,
oh.
she does. I'm not going to really let you know what exactly happens, but I will say that she comes into her own as a doctor. And yeah,
Oh, I tell you what, I haven't read that one, but I'm going to have to because while it's a completely different story by your description, it still has a strong sense of adventure. Uh,
yes.
that she is going out of her natural element into the unknown, it sounds like, and
Mhm.
facing God knows what.
Yes, exactly, exactly. It's definitely a questing story, a quest.
Uh-huh.
And yeah, she has a lot of wild encounters, I should say.
Well, we will leave it at that because we don't want to go into spoilers because I'm
Yeah.
sure the audience is going to want to grab up both of these books. And I can't praise The Sea Cure enough. If you like anything remotely resembling historical fiction, then that's the one you need to read. Audience, I wouldn't lead you in the wrong direction. If you know me at all, I may be a little goofy, but I'm always honest. The Sea Cure is something special. It really is. All right, I have to ask you this. Do you have any current works in progress? And would you tell us a little bit about them?
I do. I should mention that I really began writing as a poet,
Uh-huh.
and I have several poetry books that I think and there's another one coming out soon. Actually, it's out, I think. Yeah, and so I like going back and forth between poetry and fiction in terms of
Uh-huh.
writing. So I've been working on, but this one really landed in my lap by circumstance. I will say that I want to mention that in this past year, last year, at the beginning of last year, sadly, my daughter and grandchildren's home, community, and their schools burned down in the LA fires.
Oh my.
So when that happened, I had been working on another novel, but I just shifted gears and felt that I needed to bear witness to what had happened through poetry.
Uh-huh.
And what it's become, that I have to say has been so healing, is really moving from this arc of devastation, really quite a lot of devastation and hardship for especially my grandkids because they are young,
Uh-huh.
and but to through seeing the community come together, seeing nature rejuvenate. That's been the astonishing thing. The way, because they lived in an area kind of backed up to some mountains, and it was blackened at the beginning, and now nature has completely renewed herself, and it's amazing. Even on their little lot where they're rebuilding, there were trees that we loved, and I love gardening, working in the garden with my grandkids and my daughter. but there were trees that we lost. There was a beautiful, out west here, we have something called the madrone trees that have a very smooth reddish bark like manzanita. And they have these little flowers that the hummingbirds adore. And we loved this tree. Well, after the fire, it was three black sticks. That tree was gone. However, because this is a native tree, what happened, like my daughter called me, like I want to say maybe a month or two after the actual fire. She said, "You're not going to believe this. Come and look at this," and it was the madrone had sent up these shoots from its roots that were already 3 feet high after only a couple of months.
Wow.
As in, because the native plants have this ability, they're used to some fire, so they store water in their roots, and then after the fire passes over, they can regenerate. So
Wow.
that's been seeing the garden come back and seeing the mountains, seeing nature return with her beauty has been a real source of inspiration for me. So that book is almost complete, that book of poems. And
Ooh.
then in the waiting room, there is another novel that takes place in Italy. So, and I won't say too much more about that, but it's there. It will be coming.
Ah, I want to say very quickly, as I am uh, pretty familiar with the sea cure, I do want to mention that it's very impressive to me that your poetry, your emotional style of poetry, shows all the way through that prose. I mean, it is beautiful. It is written beautifully, and the storyline it's very artistic. It's very poetic, and I think that'll probably be in everything you write, and it's a wonderful talent. And from my experience, it's rare. Um, I'm a writer myself. I couldn't begin to write something like that. You know, yeah. The cat climbed up the tree. Yeah, I got that. You know. Well, I'm afraid we're going to run shy on time, so I do want to get this little bit in here because I always enjoy it. I love learning from authors. So I would like to offer you an opportunity where I will hush and you can address the audience directly and share anything you like.
Mm, mm. Oh, I would say, especially during this time, that that poetry or writing in any form, and we all have different gifts, as writers. Um, and even I tell my grandkids, I go, at some level, we can all be writers. We can all touch that creative wellspring. And I would say, more than any other time, I feel let's all go to that wellspring. Let's all find the stories that want to be told.
Mm-hmm.
Um, yeah, I feel like that's especially important now. And I think it's especially important to spend time in nature, in the natural world that we are really a part of. I try to make time every day. The Japanese have this wonderful phrase, you may have heard it, but they call it the forest bath. And they say every day we need to take a forest bath. Now, some of us do not live in the forest, but there are parks, and maybe there's a tree nearby, or maybe there's some wonderful environment, with cactus that are, would speak to you. So yes, I would encourage that. Yeah.
Oh, it's a beautiful thought. And when I was young, much younger, I used to love to go hiking and exploring and things like that. As I got older and got into, I've owned several businesses, and then I got into this business, and this is A, the most fulfilling thing I've ever done. B, the most time consuming and difficult. I find that sometimes, actually, very often, 15 hours a day, I'm sitting at my desk in my office working. So I miss a lot of nature. And I do very much miss it. And your thought touched me and inspires me to find some time to just get out and get away from the desk. And
Yeah.
I think that's very solid advice. I'm going to take your advice.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
You
That's
know,
great. That's
because
great.
no matter how much one thinks they know, if they have any intelligence at all, the thing they know most is that they don't know everything.
Mhm.
I've learned a lot in the last few years, but I've also learned that I don't know everything. And your thought is very, very valuable, that being fulfilled in your work is nice, but being fulfilled in your life includes enjoying the world that we've been blessed with. And
Mhm.
I need to get out there and enjoy some of it. It's been a while.
Yeah, I think, well, we all do. And sometimes I even, get very busy and realize, the end of the day, I thought I haven't been out of my house, and I need to go into the garden, and there's always, I guess what I love too about it is it brings me to a sense of wonder and appreciate and gratitude, for this life. So that and I can say that feeds the work, you know. So thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. This has been wonderful.
Well, I know the audience is going to want to know, so I would like to ask you. I will put all relevant links in the description on the YouTube video, but I share this across my entire platform, and some of them don't have access to that description box. So I always ask my guests to verbally share, if you will, your website, any social media you may have, where a fan could reach out and say, "Hi, what's up with your work in progress? How's it going?" Or
Yeah,
or anything like that. So if
yeah.
you're willing to, I'd love you to share that kind of information.
Absolutely, absolutely. So my website that also has my email, if you wish to contact me, is Regina O'Melveny author.com. And I probably should spell that for you because it's long. So Regina, and it's all lowercase, ReginaOmelveny author.com. So
Cool.
that's my website. You'll find a lot of information there on the books. Yeah, and again, you can contact me with my email there, and also through Instagram, I'm at Gina O'Melveny, Ginao again Omelveny. So
Ah, fantastic. Because I'm pretty sure I'd be willing to bet on it that anyone in the audience hearing about your fabulous stories and your wonderful insights, you have a poetic heart. It's not just in your writing, and it's wonderful. It really is. And I'm sure that people will want to reach out to you. So thank you for sharing that information. That's very nice of you to do that.
great,
Well, we're
and thank you.
about to run out of time on my silly little show, but I want you to know how very much I appreciate that you took time out of your schedule to come and chat with me. It's just been such an absolute joy to be able to just sit and talk with you for a little while.
Likewise, Rod. Likewise, a pleasure and anytime.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah.
to the audience, episode 58 of Relax and Chat must come to an end. I bet you've enjoyed meeting Regina, and I will bet you I'll put some money on it. Oh, you guys like quarters? I don't have a lot of money. But I will bet you that you will absolutely love The Secure. No matter what is your favorite genre. I'm a horror writer. I love horror. I wouldn't say The Secure has a lot of horror. It's got a little touches here and there. But I'll tell you what, it's out of my regular genre, but it's one of the best books I've ever read by any author at any time. And I vouch for this story wholeheartedly because it is something special. You want to go grab a copy of this. Thank you, audience, for taking the time to watch the show, and I sure hope I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye, everybody.
Thank you. Thank you so much.